makes it look so easy, look so clean. He moves like God's immaculate machine. He makes me think about all of these extra moves I make, all this herky-jerky motion, and the bag of tricks it takes to get me through my working day.
Joe Brown started his professional career as a stage and TV performer in the late 50s, and by the 60s he'd moved into music. Not exclusively, he did do TV and radio after that. I believe his first single came out in 1959, and he is still going in a career that spans 6 decades. He had a big hit with his backing band, The Brothers, in the 60s with Picture of You. He has played with lots of well-known people, including, I believe, Elvis. George Harrison was the best man at his second wedding. And speaking of family stuff, he has a musical family. So his first wife, Vicky, who sadly died, was a backing and sessions singer. His daughter, Sam, is Sam Brown of the big hit Stop fame. His son, Pete, is a multi-instrumentalist and producer. And his stepdaughter, Molly Marriott, who's the actual daughter of Steve Marriott of the Small Faces, is also a singer. Wikipedia claims that he does 200 gigs a year. I think that's out of date. I think he used to do that. I'm not sure he's still doing that. And that he releases an album a year. That doesn't chime with the fact that it only lists 14 studio albums, but I think in a while he was releasing compilations at quite a rate. Hi, my name's Dan. So most of the review videos on this album on this channel, so the channel is all about doing short reviews of albums, music albums, and almost all of them are of me working my way through the list at Acclaimed Music of the 3,000 greatest albums of all time. I've done about 800 to 820-ish. And so I've got quite a long way to go, but I have given myself the license to step off the list occasionally. I do that about 1 in 10, roughly. And some of those are new releases. I haven't done a new release for a while. Some of those are request reviews, and if you want to request a review, just leave a comment on any of the videos on the channel, and I should see it. I don't promise ever that I'm going to review everything that anybody requests, but so far I've done almost all of them. So if you want to request a review, go ahead. This, however, is one of the ones that I've chosen just because I like the album and I want to do a review of it. And this comes under the category of hidden gem, which is, I think, albums that are not particularly well known out there. And I'm not even sure if Joe Brown's well known at all outside the UK. I don't think he's that well known inside the UK, actually, as it happens. So this is one of my hidden gems. And I come at Joe through his daughter, Sam. So I'm a huge fan of Sam Brown. I've got, I think, all her albums. I've seen her live several times. But I come to Joe through that. So Joe is her dad. And I've got 2 or 3 of his albums. I think maybe it's 2. And I especially love this one, so I thought I'd share it with you. As I say, I don't think it's particularly well known out there. So I'm going to describe this as being British Americana, which is a bit cheeky in some ways because that's not a known genre, but it is it's mostly Americana. So it's songs brought into the attention of the public eye and a wider audience by people like Led Belly and Hoagy Carmichael and Woody Guthrie. But it's also, there are some later songs. When I say later, we're talking about 70s and 60s. So people like Paul Simon. We've got One Trick Pony on here, which is a great song by Paul Simon. Bob Dylan, Richard and Linda Thompson. So there is definitely certainly mostly an American or an Americana feel here, which is kind of a cross between things like blues, country, jazz, American folk, bluegrass, and things like that. One of the songs, which is called Reuben, I'm a little bit confused. I've been trying to work out what its origins are, and it feels to me like it's actually a cross between two songs. So there is a song called "Who's Gonna Shoe Your Pretty Little Feet," which was by Woody Guthrie, but I don't know where the Reuben bit comes in. And I don't know if there's another song which has got the bits about Reuben in it, and that somebody somewhere has put these two together, and I don't know if it's Joe. I have heard a later version of this song that does exactly the same combination as this. So that one confuses me. And the reason why I'm talking about it is because if anybody actually knows the origins of this song, please do let me know. I'd love to know. I haven't tried chasing up the origins of all of the songs. I got some of them through, so they get quite confusing at times. Like I said, there's rock. Well, I said there's blues, there's country, there's bluegrass, there's rock in here, and there's square dance. The last track is a very kind of like a hoedown kind of song. Possibly the two most surprising tracks on here are Black Betty, which was made famous by Ram Jam in the 70s. And the way that it's done on this album is very reminiscent of the Ram Jam version. But it is an older track than that, quite a lot older. And the track Gallows Pole, which has been done very kind of well known by Led Zeppelin and by the Black Crowes, but also it's an old folk song. This is not a rendition that is similar to the Led Zeppelin version. It's very much its own take. We've got all this kind of folk and Americana stuff, and then we've got Joe singing, and Joe's got a Cockney accent, which is kind of this interesting combination that he's singing stuff about. So Lazy Bones, this is a great song, but I think this is the Hoagie Carmichael one about being in the Southern America, and he's singing it in a Cockney accent, and somehow, for me, it works. Some people might say this is cultural adoption. I think it's adaptation, and I think it's entirely legitimate. But then I don't think that I'm not a great believer in boundaries in music, saying you can only do music from your own particular background. It does have, for me, again, a feeling of authenticity about it because I think that he's earned the right to do these things through the legacy of what he's done in the past. But you make your own decision on that. There's lots of stringed instruments going on here. There's guitars, there's slide guitar, there's mandolin, there's fiddle, there's banjo, and so on. So it does have this kind of crossover feel between um, between folk and in a more kind of English or British sense than Americana stuff. Again, that is definitely a connection that is there and can work really well. It features Joe singing, fairly obviously. It's also got several others singing on here, so this does include Sam on some lead vocals, kind of duetting with Joe, and some backing vocals. It's got Molly Marriott, who's his stepdaughter, on backing. I believe it's produced by his son Pete. I did find it hard to get full information about this album. Pete does. I have got some information on who plays on what, and Pete is playing is all over it, and it feels like Pete and Joe have been playing past the instrument half the time. It fits nicely, and it's kind of timing. I can't remember the years for the others, but in my head, it fits kind of in the kind of same space as an album called Raising Sand by Alison Krauss and Robert Plant, an album called All the Road Running by Martin Knopfler and Emmylou Harris. And it's this kind of, both of those are kind of British American cross. They've got a male singer and a female singer, and they've got the same kind of warmth in the production. And it's beautifully produced. Uh, but that's not the thing that I love about it. Is the fact that it's got lots of heart and it's an obvious love letter to the music and to these songs. There's an obvious, absolutely love of these songs coming through here, and I love it. Some of these songs, I have to say, are very ingrained in me. So when my kids were small, we had a data stick that we play in the car called the Blue Data Stick, and this slowly transitioned as I morphed it from mostly kids' songs and a few kind of more contemporary stuff. And then over time, it just became more and more of the stuff that I love. And so there were several songs on here that found their way into that fairly big compilation. Um, If there's a weak point on the album, I think it's the more poignant songs. I'm not quite so convinced by those as I am by some of the more upbeat and jolly stuff. But in general, obviously, I absolutely love this album. I'd love to introduce you to it if you don't know it. If you do know it and you've got an opinion, I'd love to know what your opinion is. If you've got anything you want to say about Joe Brown, and he's such a legend, then please do stick things in the comments. And that's it from me for now.
As long as there is chicken gravy on your rice, everything is nice.
As long as there's a watermelon on the vine, everything is fine.
You got no time, no